Hello everyone, welcome to another ultimate camera comparison test. This time it's David versus Goliath. Goliath being the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra and little David, the one that punches above his weight, the Pixel 4a. So we're going to take it through all its paces, man. We're going to take it and do it daytime test, low light test, video, photos, all of it. We're going to try and run it through its paces. Might be a long one, but hey, let's get it and see. So we'll break down the specs and let's get down to it. Let's start with the specs of the main cameras on the rear. And with the Note 20 Ultra, you do have the 108 megapixel camera with f1.8 aperture, 26mm field of view, a 1/1.33 inch sensor. The sensor is large, 0.8 micron pixel size with face detection autofocus, and the biggest improvement is that addition of the laser assisted autofocus module with OIS. And what you have to remember is that the main camera sensor does do 9:1 pixel binning, where the final output images are 12 megapixels unless you activate the 108 megapixel mode in the settings. Next is the zoom camera. So 12 megapixels, f3.0 aperture, 120mm field of view in terms of the equivalent for full frame, 1.0 micron pixel size, face detection autofocus with optical image stabilization with that 5x optical zoom and up to 50x hybrid zoom. Last is the ultra wide angle camera at 12 megapixels, f2.2 aperture, 120-degree field of view at 0.5x magnification. What that basically gives is a 30mm field of view, a 1/2.55 inch sensor, and a pixel size of 1.4 micron pixels, which is impressive. This is the kind of sensor size that we're getting from smartphones from a year or two ago. So now that's moved over to the ultra wide, yeah, we should be yielding some good results on a hardware level. And then flipping over to the selfie on the Note 20 Ultra, it's 10 megapixels with an f2.2 aperture, 26mm field of view, a 1/3.2 inch sensor, 1.22 micron pixel size with dual pixel autofocus on the selfie camera. So this selfie camera should be interesting in terms of going from 40 down to 10 megapixels versus the S20 Ultra. That's how it looks on the hardware wise. Now straight to the point for the Pixel 4a, you do get that 12.2 megapixel sensor, f1.7 aperture, 27mm wide field of view, a 1/2.55 inch sensor size, 1.4 micron pixels with dual pixel autofocus, face detection, and optical image stabilization. And when you come over to the selfie, it's 8 megapixels, f2.0, 24mm wide field of view, and a 1.12 micron pixel size. In terms of the video specs, the Pixel on the main camera tops out at 4K UHD 30 frames a second and 1080p 30 frames a second on the front facing camera. But when it comes to the front facing camera on the Note 20 Ultra, man, it can go all the way up to 4K UHD 60 frames a second. The rear camera does 4K 60 as well, but it does also have an 8K 24 frames a second mode, which we'll be testing. And that's it. Now let's get back into the daytime shots for the video and see how these phones perform. So we are starting with the selfie camera, and man, we're going to be in for a ride because this Note 20 Ultra has got a lot of shooting modes. And as you can see on the screen, 4K UHD 60 frames a second on the selfie camera, whereas the Pixel 4a tops out at 1080p 30 frames a second. That is insane. We're going to run it through all the modes and compare each. All right, quick run. Now we switch to the 4K UHD 30 frames a second video recording mode on the Note 20. Again, comparing it to the 1080p 30, seeing the dynamic range, man, the sun's really out, which is good. How it transitions, the color rendition, dynamic range, and obviously the stabilization. Short run. And we've matched the resolutions. The Note 20 Ultra is now down to 1080p 30 frames a second. Next to the Pixel 4a. Same as checking the stabilization, the color rendition, the dynamic range, the sun's out, man, it's high. Audio as well, of course, and stabilization. You know what time it is? Short run. Now onto the rear cameras, 4K 30 frames a second UHD on both. Obviously the Pixel only tops out at 4K 30. and it only has a single lens. This has many modes. All right, short run. So it looks like with the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, when you're in 4K 30 frames a second, you can switch between all three camera sensors and lenses on the fly, which is great to see. So what we're going to do now, we're going to try the ultra wide angle, 0.5x magnification. I'm going to take a walk, still on 4K 30 against the pixel, and a run. Now what we're going to do, we're going to go from the ultra wide down to the main. There's different zoom levels, press and hold. We're going to try ×2 to match the ×2 of the pixel. Take a walk. See how the stabilization is and how the image quality is. Short run. We're still in ×2. I do believe with the ×2, it is doing a digital crop on the main sensor. So what we're going to do now, we're going to switch to the ×5 periscope zoom. So ×5 periscope zoom, we're going to take a walk. Wow. We're going to do a short little run, see how the stabilization holds up. And back to the main sensor. And now we're down to 1080p, 30 frames a second. On both cameras, again, just testing it the same. Short run. Then we're going to switch to the ultra wide on the fly. Yeah, this Note 20's got a lot of cameras, a lot of lenses, a lot of modes, so it's a long one, guys. Grab your popcorn, get your drink, sit back and enjoy. Short run again in the ultra wide, 1080p 30 frames a second. Listen up for the audio as well. And then change zoom. I've got the zoom on default to match the zoom of the mic to the camera, so however the audio sounds is default. Short run in the 5x periscope zoom. Wow. Now we switch to 4K UHD 60 frames a second on the Note 20 Ultra versus 1080p 60 frames a second on a Pixel 4a. First thing I've already noticed, it looks like the main camera is the only camera on the Note 20 Ultra that can record in 4K UHD 60 frames a second, which is very, very interesting. Not sure why the zoom as well as the ultra wide cannot do 4K 60. Yeah, okay. Quick walk. Let's see how the stabilization, dynamic range, the color rendition, and stabilization are. Now for the crazy. This is 8K in a 16:9 Ultra HD format, 24 frames a second on the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, 4K 30 on the Pixel 4a in UHD. And yeah, this is, I thought, let me give this a try, man. You've got it. I'm not gonna output this video in 8K, so don't worry about that. short run. Now I've switched on the super steady video mode on the Note 20 Ultra. Now how I believe this works is, and I just literally tested it now before activating it, I blocked the periscope zoom and the main camera sensors with my fingers and nothing happened. But when I blocked the ultra wide, it blacked out. So that means it's purely using the ultra wide. It's doing an advanced electronic image stabilization and a crop on there, and pretty much giving you what is probably a gimbal-like stabilization, kind of like a GoPro. So let's test it. It gives two options in terms of field of view, but I'm guessing this is more down to ultra wide, zoomed in. It looks a bit softer on my screen, but we'll have to check it in post. Back to the ultra wide, and it should only be in 1080p so far as I know. Okay, let's do an extreme run. So yeah, that was actually a sprint, not a light jog. So we'll see how the stabilization looks like in super steady. This is an autofocusing test with the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra using the iPhone 8 as the subject. We know that there is a laser assisted autofocus module on there, so let's test it to see how it behaves. Looks to be working really well. This is an autofocusing test for the Pixel 4a 4K 30 frames a second, as well as the previous camera as well, and just seeing how it behaves using the iPhone 8 as the object. Looks to be working great. This is now the low light video for the Note 20 Ultra and the Pixel 4a, and that is 4K UHD 30 frames a second on both. We're just gonna see how they look like in low light, and we'll switch between the different camera sensors and lenses on the Note 20 Ultra and see how they perform. Alright, we'll stop, switch to the ultra wide. Just on my screen it looks like definitely has letting less light. Let's go back to the main. And then we'll go to the periscope zoom ×5. And then back to the main. And this is the 1080p 30 frames a second on both the cameras. We'll do the same again to see how they perform in low light. And we'll stop, switch to the ultra wide on the Note 20 Ultra. Yeah, it definitely looks like it's bringing in less light from what I can see on my screen. Stop, back to the main, and then we'll do the periscope ×5 zoom. And stop, back to the main. Now this is 8K 24 frames a second on the Note 20 Ultra. Honestly, I wouldn't even recommend using this mode in daytime, let alone especially in nighttime, but hey, why not? And that's versus the 4K 30 on the Pixel 4a. selfie video and low light. We've got 4K UHD 30 frames a second on the Note 20 Ultra versus 1080p 30 on the Pixel 4a. And matching the resolutions now at 1080p 30 frames a second on both the Note 20 Ultra and the Pixel 4a in low light.
Alright then, so let's start with the daytime shots, and this is a selfie of both the cameras. And the Note 20 Ultra gives you two field of views, but from the same single lens on the front, which is obviously 10 megapixels. And off the bat, I would say, man, the Pixel does it for me. This is not to say the Note 20 Ultra is not nice, it's good, but the accuracy, the contrast, the the dynamic range, just how my skin tones and everything looks on a Pixel, to me it's something that I prefer. My shirt looks a bit too washed out, even though the exposure is really good, but yeah, the Pixel nails it, man. For me, I don't know what you guys think in the comment section below, but I prefer the Pixel 4a when it comes to the selfie. And this is the portrait mode, and the story doesn't change. I don't know what's going on with the Note, but if you look closer, the feathering on the edge detection is so weird, and it makes that artificial kind of bokeh fall off not look as natural as how it does look on a Pixel. Yes, they're both artificial, but yeah, the Pixel really does selfie portrait mode right. So I don't know what you guys think, man, but in the comment section below, again, let me know which one you prefer, but I'm leaning more towards the Pixel 4a here again. So these are some of the real-time different background blur, portrait, live focus modes that you can do on the Note 20 Ultra. This one is big circle. The next one is the spin, and you can have different levels of intensity that you can change, all the way from like 1 all the way up to 7. This one is the zoom effect. Again, very funky, and the nice thing is you can see it in real time. But yeah, these are the things that you can do on the Note 20 Ultra with the live focus selfie. And last one is known as color point, and again, you can change the intensity, and mind you, you can add this effect on the Pixel after the fact when you go into the editor as well, so bear that in mind. I don't know if who and when you'd want to use it, but it's there and I wanted to kind of showcase it still. So this one is a harsh backlit selfie against the sun for both these cameras, and it's both are struggling, but again, just how my skin tones, the color of the shirt, as well as just the roll off, I prefer what I'm seeing on the Pixel. The Note 20 Ultra is good, but I don't know what Google are doing yet, but this Pixel 4a, when it comes to the selfie, punches way above its weight. So yeah, man, that's the one I'm leaning towards. And this is switching to the portrait mode in this harsh backlit situation, and boy, I don't know what Google are putting in their selfie camera with their image processing, but it's doing the work. It's not to say that the Note 20 Ultra is not good, but how my skin tones, how the color of the shirt, the accuracy, the contrast, the edge detection, yeah, definitely leaning towards the Pixel 4a. Switching to the main camera on the rear, the picture of this tree, I definitely like the Note 20 Ultra. You can definitely see more detail. You might like the more natural, more contrasty look of the Pixel 4a, which sometimes I lean towards, but it's not too vibrant on the Note 20 Ultra where it's too garish and too off-putting. I actually find it very pleasing. Yes, there's a bit more lens flare, but you're getting that on both. There's more dynamic range that I'm seeing on the foreground on the Note 20 Ultra. So yeah, man, I think this one I lean more towards the Note 20 Ultra, you know. And here is where the difference is in terms of the price points and where these phones sit: multi-camera sensors and lenses. And this Note 20 Ultra, in my personal opinion, is the nicest ultra wide angle camera I've seen in a long time. I probably need to test more different phones, but the clarity on this ultra wide angle camera is so nice. You're not really getting that much distortion. Great dynamic range, great color exposure and rendition. Like, it's nice, and this level of flexibility, you know, it's such a nice thing to have. Like, that's what's missing on the Pixel 4a. This is a quick 1x2 zoom. At ×2, you are doing a digital crop on the main sensor on the Note 20 Ultra, as well as obviously the 4a. Both look really good. Definitely getting a bit more detail in that Note 20 Ultra, so I've got to say that. But there's still great detail in the Pixel 4a, going for that much more natural, contrasty, even look, and the color accuracy is just there, you know. So yeah, this one's really just down to which one do you prefer. And this is the first showcase of that ×5 periscope optical zoom, and wow, the clarity is on point. Wow, this is clear. This is, yeah, that is where you're really seeing the difference in between the two. This zoom it's got zoom for days, and when you hit that ×5 and beyond, Yeah, it really kicks in and it's really clear. That's a good look. I like that, man. Let's show some God rays. Direct under the sun dynamic range test, and both are holding their own really well. And I think it's even more impressive on the Pixel 4a considering the price point. But both are doing really good. Maybe slightly more dynamic range on the Note 20 Ultra, maybe, but you're getting a lot more lens flare, and it just seems the scene is probably a little bit more accurate on the Pixel, but really it's a toss-up. But man, this is impressive stuff on both. And then boom, the ultra wide kicks in on the Note 20 Ultra. Honestly, anyone that says an ultra wide is not useful, especially when it looks this good, wow, I like it. I really like it. No words, man. There's no competition. The Note 20 Ultra wins it. That's the difference in what you're paying for, man. If it's worth it, it's up to you, but it's major. It's major, major, major. Now, this shot right here, this is the Note 20 Ultra with the 108 megapixel mode. And in this situation, this is the best way to use it in lots of sun, lots of light. And wow, the detail and the clarity is off the charts. Now, the shutter speed in terms of the shutter lag takes a big hit, but if you can keep it still and capture the shot, man, this is detail for days. So 108 megapixel on a big sensor like this, maybe that's something that you want. It's got it on the Note 20 Ultra. What I like using about this shot of this bush, you know, it's the mix of yellow and the green, and it kind of gives away how each camera renders colors. And honestly, to the scene, the Pixel 4a goes for pure accuracy to how you see it there and then, with a nice contrasty, even look and correct exposure. But you see, what I like about the Note 20 Ultra is, yes, there is a bit more vibrance, but I don't think it's overdone. That's just me personally. I think it's done enough where it looks pre-edited, but it looks pleasing and it's not too far off to how the natural looks. But again, it's really just down to what you want. And yet again, man, I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. That ultra wide on the Note 20 Ultra is clutch. All right, let's get some close-ups, man. Both these cameras don't have any, you know, macro features in terms of a dedicated sensor on one. You're just getting really close, and man, that Note 20 Ultra produces some natural bokeh depth of field from that main sensor, and it just makes sense, man. You know, the plane of focus is quite thin, but with the vibrancy, it doesn't take that much hit in detail, natural detail, no over sharpening, over detailing. The Pixel nails it. The Pixel's detail processing, it's so on point. It's so on point for what it does. The color accuracy, it may not look as vibrant, but honestly, I remember how it looks. This is how accurate it is. So I can appreciate what the Pixel was doing. So man, it just really depends on how you want it to look. Now, this is another harsh one. The sun's quite high, and I wanted to show this one for dynamic range reasons, where if you look closer to the house, you can see the house a lot clearer. The Pixel's doing a great job here when it comes to dynamic range. The Note 20 Ultra is struggling a bit more, which I was quite surprised. You're seeing a bit more lens flare as well. You do get a slightly wider field of view naturally, but that Pixel 4a banged here. Now, the render of the sky is ever so slightly different, naturally a bit more vibrant on the Note 20 Ultra versus obviously that neutral, more natural contrasty look of the Pixel 4a. But yeah, dynamic range here, man. Punch well above his weight, man. David versus Goliath. David's doing well, honestly. And here's the selfie with the main camera. You can see the characteristic carries through the same. I like both of these, but I just respect how well the Pixel nails, especially me of the darker skin persuasion. Like, I like the fact that it nails my skin tones and my skin accuracy and detail so on point in the Pixel 4a. Like, you've got to give it credit for that. Even though the Note has that kind of like natural draw, that's how I look. The Pixel makes me look how I look, so I always like that. Yeah, man. So this is a good look. And then, you know, looking at it when you come over the ultra wide, the flexibility of it's there. But what I do appreciate about the Note 20 Ultra is when you're going through the different camera sensors in terms of the different focal length, the consistency has been really worked on well, where you don't really see a change in terms of the quality. That's for me personally, so I like that. It's a good look. Okay, let's showcase the ultra part of this Note 20 Ultra, the crazy periscope zoom that has the 5x optical all the way up to the ×50 digital zoom. This is the main focal length of both these cameras. Then we're going to switch to ×2. Then you're going to see we're going to switch to ×4. Then we're going to switch to ×5, where the optical periscope zoom kicks in and you can see the image clears up on the Note 20 Ultra. Then we're going to go to ×10, still within the periscope zoom sensor. Then we're going to go to ×20. From ×20, we go to 50x zoom. And if you look at 50x zoom from where we were standing before, it does process those digital text, you know, the text on a board. But the fact that you can see it from there is crazy. And if you compare it to the fact that the Pixel 4a, since it has digital zoom and is only on one camera sensor, it's going up to ×7 when it comes to digital. Then you go back to the main sensor where we started, look at the difference in distance. Hey, if it's worth it, man, that's what the Note 20 Ultra can do. You kind of have to just justify and see how useful that is. But yeah, it's there, and it's kind of crazy how much you can get closer to the subject from a distance. And the Mustang returns. This is another showcase of color rendition. How does these phones color, how do they produce their colors? And again, pixels, pure accuracy. Like if you're on the road that I am, this is how the car looks like on a Pixel, period. The scene on the Pixels on point how it is in real life. Whereas obviously the vibrancy that you get from the Note 20 Ultra, this one is down to how do you want your final images to look like, and images like this really expose how colors produce on camera sensors on smartphones. So yeah, man, that's one that is put down. And again, not missing it, the ultra wide, same position, more in that 0.5x magnification. I love the ultra wide, man, and I want an ultra wide on all my phones for real. So that's a good look, man. Great clarity. All right, wrapping up the day's shots, and again, you can see the consistency, man. It doesn't change between the two. We've seen it previously, and the Pixel's more natural and realistic to life, whereas obviously the Note 20 is a little bit more vibrant, looks slightly more edited, but I honestly don't think it's that garish. But if you want a more true to life experience in terms of your final output and your images, the Pixel 4a all the way. The ultra wide is amazing. Again, that level of flexibility with the ultra wide, man, it can't be beat. I love it. I love it. And yeah, 108 megapixel, detail for days, but recommended that you need to be very still, using it in a lot of natural light, because the pixel sizes really does reduce, and you can introduce a lot more noise. So yeah, when it comes to that as well, that's kind of like how these daylight images between the two look like. Portrait mode on both, I think both did really well. I like how they both put it off. Like, yeah, I think they look equally as good as each other, but in different ways. And I've got it's a hard one. It's hard for me to pick, but I think in terms of the final output, the characteristics are the same as discovered before. So let me know which one you like out of the two. Low light images, this is one that we've been waiting for. Now, this first one here, if we depict and analyze it, I think the noise reduction on the Note 20 Ultra is a bit extreme, and I don't think it needs it. It's already letting in a lot of natural light. You're seeing this kind of smudgy, kind of oil pastel layer on top of the Note 20 Ultra, especially when you're looking into the sky. Whereas although it looks like the Pixel 4a has a bit more noise, it's retaining more detail. That's just what I'm seeing. So this one's a bit of a weird one. I think Samsung need to work on the nighttime processing on this shot. I don't think they need that much reduction where it just smudges out the image too much. But in this next image, in saying this, I think the nighttime shot, this is just a normal nighttime shot without the night mode or the night sight on both these cameras, and I think the Note 20 Ultra, it just exposes way better. If you look further in the distance where the petrol station is, you can see how the light is completely blown out on the Pixel and it's perfectly exposed, as well as bringing in a lot of natural light. And that's a good look. I like the Note 20 Ultra and how it looks here, but it's kind of expected of how that sensor is. It's a big sensor, so it should be able to pull this off. So that's a good look. I really like what the Note 20 Ultra is doing here. Now, if you go to the ultra wide, don't use the ultra wide for low light. I'm only demonstrating this because the ultra wide for low light on the Note 20 Ultra, that's not what it's there for. Don't bother. Pointless, completely pointless. And again, this is the ×5 zoom. I don't even think at nighttime or when it doesn't have enough light, it actually goes to the zoom periscope sensor. It probably just crops in ×5 on the main sensor, which wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, again, don't use the zoom when it comes to nighttime shots at all. And night sight, this is the standard night sight on both, and my goodness, the Google Pixel does the work. Now, okay, you look further at the petrol station, the Note 20 Ultra exposes much better. It doesn't blow out those highlights and stuff, but in terms of the image on the foreground, and especially in the nighttime sky, without having any weird purple, hazy kind of image on the top right and the left of the image of the Note 20 Ultra, this Pixel 4a when it comes to night sight is the truth. Wow. Now this is the night sight where you had longer exposure on the Pixel 4a. It was probably exposing like around 1 minute 22 seconds. The longest exposure that I was getting from the Note 20 Ultra was about 5 seconds to 10 seconds. And I'll be honest with you, man, this is where what the Pixel can do with astrophotography activated on at this price point, unmatched, untouched. Night sight, Google Pixel all the way. I don't know what they're doing, but yeah, it's on point. But now in saying that, If you're going to use the ultra wide, use night mode. Night mode makes a big difference on the ultra wide. Look at the difference here. This is with the ultra wide with night mode, and it works beautifully. So good. And even showing it again, this is with the longer exposure of 5 to 10 seconds with the ultra wide in night mode on the Note 20 Ultra. Use night mode in the ultra wide angle camera if you're using it. It's on point. Selfie camera on both, and this is just a normal selfie, no flash, no night mode, and yeah, you can barely see me on any. So yeah, it's something where you're gonna need to use the flash. And if you look at the flash is very extreme on the Note 20 Ultra. It's quite close as well. I kind of actually prefer the Pixel 4a. It's much more well naturally illuminated with the display. The display on the Note 20 Ultra is quite bright, so maybe that's one of the things that's affecting it. I kind of prefer the even exposure on the Pixel 4a. Then night mode on the Pixel 4a on the selfie. Night mode on the selfie is intense on any camera, but the Pixel just does it. It does it a lot better. Too smudgy on the on the Note 20 Ultra. Pixel 4a on this one, I'll definitely say. And the final remaining nighttime pictures of myself. The Note 20 Ultra lets in a lot of natural light, but the noise reduction with that kind of smudgy oil pastel look over the image, I'm not digging that at all, and I don't think it's needed. There's a lot of natural light that comes in. They really need to work out the processing consistency on this side here. And you know, the ultra wide, yeah, just don't bother. Like I said, don't bother unless you're using night mode for the ultra wide. And then when it comes to the night sight, man, the Pixel takes it. When I say it takes it. How it does this so well, I don't even know anymore. So good. Now, wrapping up a quick conclusion, honestly, without having to test any other smartphone for a long while, the Note 20 Ultra's video capabilities are the best I've personally tested. The clarity from something like the selfie mode, the selfie does 4K 60 UHD, and the clarity, when I keep looking back at it, I'm thinking this is from a smartphone. The level of brute force and hardware capabilities that it can do, you know, from the level of zoom, the clarity of the ultra wide, the largeness of the sensor in terms of the natural bokeh depth of field that it actually produces, the stabilization that it can produce, not just from the super steady but from all the natural video shooting modes. It's stabilizing 4K 60 on the selfie camera as well as the rear camera. Now, I wish the 4K 60 was available on all the three camera sensors. 8K 24 frames a second is more of a proofing concept, and it's a bit ahead of its time. I don't think it's producing enough of a high bit rate, and you lose a lot of things like, you know, the focus and the stabilization. So that's another thing to consider. The flexibility of the ultra wide and the multiple cameras makes the Note 20 great, but the Pixel 4a, when it comes to stills, it's so good. The accuracy, the detail processing without over sharpening, the exposure, the contrasty look, the natural look, the stabilization that it can produce with that processor that's in there, up to 4K 30 frames a second. It's crazy good. Even on a selfie camera, what this camera does in terms of stills photography, and even listening to the audio improvement on the Pixel 4a, it rivals some flagship phones and it beats them. It's amazing what this phone is doing at this price point. So I don't know, that's the conclusion to it, man. It makes sense at this price point where you're paying up to £1,279 for the Note 20 Ultra. This is the performance that you should be expecting and beyond. Whereas on this £349, trust me, this Pixel surprises me every single time how much it punches above its weight. So that is it, man. Ben from Lover of Tech, I know this is a long one, but I really wanted to do this, man. David versus Goliath, Pixel 4a versus the Note 20 Ultra camera, ultimate camera comparison, man. I can't even finish saying it. Hope you guys are good. If you enjoy content and videos like this, you know exactly what to do. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're part of Team TLS, the Tech Lover Squad, so you don't miss any future content that's posted on the channel. I hope you're all safe during this time. I will catch you in the next one. Peace.